think you're gonna like this, my friends. I think you're gonna like this. Hey guys, I'm Jim. I edit photos. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're talking about the brand new update for Luminar AI. It's update 4. It's out today. It's a free update if you're a current owner of Luminar AI. And if you don't have Luminar AI yet, you can get it at the link down below. You can use my coupon code JIMNIX to save $10. And what I want to do here is hit the highlights of the new features. The first one is, and this is the kind of the drum roll please thing, and that is we get Portrait Bokeh AI. Previously called Bokeh AI, it's now called Portrait Bokeh AI, and that's because it is designed for portraits. It's not designed for macro and things like that. My guess is maybe we'll get some variations of that tool in the future, but this is the last promised feature that when they first announced Luminar AI many months ago, that we were promised, right? And here it is. They've delivered on it. It's cool. I'm going to walk through a demo. There are, secondly, some updates to Sky AI, which is their sky replacement tool. It's gotten better and easier to use. Very cool. I'm going to cover that. And thirdly, there's also an update to the texture tool, which you do via local adjustments. It's awesome. I'm going to go through that as well. Let's hit it. Okay, here is a portrait from Unsplash. I'll put a link to the artist down below, and I'm going to walk through Portrait Bokeh AI. As you can imagine, it uses artificial intelligence to recognize people in a photo, allowing you to blur the background. It also works on groups of people and on people that are in maybe unusual positions. I've tried it on a lot of different photos. This masking is really good, and they're allowing you to see the mask. I'm going to show you that as well. So as the name of it implies, it allows you to blur the background literally in seconds. If you're in the portrait section, you have Portrait Bokeh AI right there. If you click on that, and you can see that the tool is available to you. It's fairly simple to use. It's very powerful. I like it quite a bit. Makes me want to take more portraits, which is something because I'm not much of a portrait person. So as you drag this, usually it takes a couple of seconds for it to recognize, but it'll start blurring the background. So, you can go like that and really blur it, as you can see, or, in this case, I'm going to go kind of a realistic amount, maybe something like that. So this allows you to simulate the look of a potentially more expensive lens. Sometimes it's hard to get that dreamy background blur without a really expensive 1.4 or 1.2 lens. Now you can do it with really any lens, any camera, whatever it is. So it allows you to do that. Here's one of the really cool things is once you've turned it on by dragging that amount slider, once you hover over the photo, you will see that it's showing you the mask. And that's where this brush control section comes into play. You can adjust the radius, softness, and opacity of the brush, but as you can see here with these different little tabs, you can click on focus or defocus or restore. So focus is will allow you to say, hey, I want that section in focus. And so you can just paint on the mask, and then if you decide you don't want that, you can come back with defocus and just adjust that. So pretty powerful, pretty amazing, but what I really like, well, two things I really like. Number one, the accuracy of this mask is honestly insane. Let me close the tool for a second and zoom in and show you something about like that. Now let me open the tool again. You can't zoom in when the tool is open, but look at that hair and even the spaces in between the hair where the like the street is showing. It didn't get that in the mask, and the mask is honestly, it's just about perfect. I would say 97, 98% of the time, it's doing an incredible job. A couple percent of the time, I'm coming in with a little bit of defocus or the focus button and making some minor adjustments. But honestly, it's so intelligent and so much quicker than you could ever do on your own. It's really impressive. And of course, you have the section down below for background. And as you can see, this is going to give you more control over the entire background. So I can choose to increase the brightness if I'd like to. I like this slider a lot, this highlights glow. As you can see, as I drag that, it's kind of popping those brighter parts, which I think looks pretty neat. You have temperature control, so if you want to make it warmer or cooler, I tend to prefer cooler. And there's depth correction. And so this allows you to kind of pull the blur closer or push it further back. So if you want to pull the blur closer into you, you can do that. If you just drag it to the left, you can see that blur is coming a little bit closer. And if I drag it to the right, it's kind of fading further into the background. So as the name implies, that is depth control for the blur itself. And then edge correction is really for fine things like hair, where it defaults to 20, but you can drag it one way or the other. And in your experiment, you'll see it kind of collapses the mask around somebody's hair. So if they have a lot of hair flying, it might collapse some of that. Just use that one. gingerly, I would say. But all these tools together give you really powerful control over the ability to have this beautiful blurred background. I think it's a revelation. I think it's pretty amazing. I'm pretty excited about it. Now keep in mind, just like with any other tools, you can combine other tools with Portrait Bokeh AI to get a look that you really want. Let's say in this case, I want to put a new sky in. I'm going to grab something like that, stick that into the background, and just leave that there. And then I'm going to come back to Portrait Bokeh AI, and maybe I want to adjust the blur. So as I drag that blur, notice it's blurring the sky more as well, which I think is really cool. So if you replace the sky, you can get the blur of that sky to match the bokeh that you've created in your photo. So I can adjust brightness, also adjusting that sky, and temperature. If I take that down, that sky is also getting cooler. So that's a pretty powerful thing, and I think pretty interesting implementation of this tool. So it allows you, in this case, I like it better with a new sky because oops, that's the wrong tool to turn off. If I turn off sky, actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just do this. There we go. It was blown out, blah, blah, blah. It's fine, right? I'm not picking on the photo, but it's something that I would say, gosh, I'd really rather have a new sky in it. And you can quickly do that and still take advantage of the power of these Portrait Bokeh AI tools to really make your subject stand out from the background. And having said that, I would say just be careful, because if you really do a whole lot of blur and then, you know, make some adjustment to the brightness and then maybe do some crazy like depth, that kind of thing, it's going to look almost like, in this case, it looks completely fake, right? But you can see this depth correction, the more I increase that Portrait Bokeh amount, now I'm reducing it to show you, the more that depth correction is adjusted, right? So when Portrait Bokeh AI is at 20, but depth correction is at -100, you know, it comes a fair amount forward. But as I start to drag the Portrait Bokeh amount more to the right, you can see, because I continue to keep depth correction at -100, it's really pulling it forward. The whole point of that is really just be careful. As I often say about things, it's a delicate dance between these things. So be careful with your amount and your depth correction, but I think that they can work in tandem to get you a really nice looking result like that, which I think looks at least mostly realistic. It's hard to say it's 100% realistic when I know I put it in a sky and blurred the background, but I really like this tool. I think it's fun. I think it's powerful. And like I said, it gives you some neat creative capabilities for your portrait work. Okay, Sky AI got updated. Here's a photo that I've already used Accent AI to brighten, and only because it was dark. So let me show you the original. There you go. And I used Accent AI and nothing else to get this looking the way it looks now. And what I want to do is show you the updates to Sky AI, because they're powerful and awesome. And I'm pretty excited about this because, hey, guess what? It gives you more control over your photo. So I'm going to choose one of my own skies. And by the way, I've had a number of people ask me about my own skies because I do use them in my videos. I'm thinking about putting a sky pack together, just a small one. If you're interested, let me know in a comment. And if you want, join my newsletter for that announcement. I haven't decided I'm going to do it, but I think that I might. Anyway, let's dive into this. You now have, let me show you actually, tell you what, let me click on this, sky orientation. You now have this horizon position. So if you guys remember the adjustable gradient tool from like Luminar 4, it's very much like that. It allows you to blend the horizon by adjusting these, and they only go so far. So it's not like an adjustable gradient where you can really do an incredibly wide gradient zone, which is what I call the area between the outer two lines, but it does give you that kind of gradient fade. So as you can see, you can adjust this up and down, but then let me put it back up here, but you can also fade how the horizon kind of blends together. You can see how that's happening there. So that's a powerful tool. And basically, let me show you what it used to look like. This is what sky orientation used to look like. You had this slider for vertical position, horizontal blending, and then you had this second section called horizon position with shift and rotation. It was honestly, it was a little bit confusing. Now you've got this horizon position is collapsed into that gradient tool, and then you have a couple of other sliders here to adjust it. So this new horizon position slider is really the point of origin for your sky replacement, and it does actually drive the reflections as well. Notice as I drop behind the mountains, if I adjust this gradient zone, you're not going to see anything, and that's because the horizon, because I've got this so low behind the mountains, it's hidden, right? So just keep that in mind. You're not going to get a fade if you drop this below the horizon. So, by the way, I'm probably going to come back and do individual videos about each of these features. If you want to see those, let me know down below. The great thing about this is also you can twist or rotate what they call a Z-axis. So instead of just X and Y, up and down and that sort of thing, you can do that tilt as well if you need to. So maybe I'm going to do a little bit of a fade like that, and maybe I want to go into reflection and create a little bit more reflection amount. But I also want to twist this a little bit, and so you can see the reflection adjusting accordingly. Now I'm going to go ahead and close that. I have this vertical and horizontal position sliders here, and I can just slide these left or right. As you can see, that will impact how this photo is looking, and of course how that reflection is looking. I'm going to go with something like that, and horizontal position allows me to slide that sky one way or the other. So basically the big thing here is this horizon position slider, which I think has made it much easier to get your horizon just where you want it. Just keep in mind that is your new point of origin, and that is going to drive how the reflections look in your photo. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the update to the texture tool. I'm in local masking. I'm going to say click add and click texture, and you have a texture selection drop-down menu, and you now have visible or visual browse. You can kind of go through and see the textures. Now, some of these are my own textures. I've got a texture pack, but that's all textures, and I've loaded that folder in there as well. So this comes now with two texture packs, flares and sparklers. So there's flares, so you can see visually what those look like. And then also sparklers, you can see those as well. Those are included in this update. You can also go add your own texture pack. I added mine, Urban Distress, which is something that I sell on my website, but I could come in here and choose a texture and then just drop that in on the photo like that if I wanted to do that. So let's say that I do. First thing I want to do is take that opacity down. It's just a little too much. And let's say I want to adjust the blend mode. I'm going to go with luminosity. And of course you have masking, so you can come in here with a mask. I'm going to get a gradient, and what I want to do is just kind of drop and blend that texture in, mostly into the sky, a little bit into the foreground, and boom, I'm done. Now, the beautiful thing here is that you can add your own folders like I did. A couple of new texture packs are included. Visual browse, but also, did you notice? It's naming your usage of the tool based on the texture name. So this is a copy of my texture called Grungy Wall. It's now naming that. So in the past, it used to say something like, adjustment 1 or something, I don't even remember, but now it names it. So that's pretty handy, which allows you, especially if you're using multiple textures or even other instances of the basic texture, you might want to come in and do something, I don't know, I'm making it up here, my friends, but it's just going to say basic. But if you're using basic multiple times, but you're also using multiple textures, you'll be able to tell some of those apart. I would like them to allow us to rename these basic textures. Don't have that yet, maybe someday, but the cool thing is the textures now are picking up the name of the texture, so you know which texture was used on which layer. I also don't know if you noticed, but this tool is much quicker and much more responsive, so I like that as well. So that's it, my friends. That is a quick overall summary of the new Luminar AI Update 4. It's out today. Get it for yourself. If you have Luminar AI, you can just click on Check for Updates in the upper left corner. Well, on a Mac, it's upper left corner. Might be slightly different on Windows, but I think it's upper left corner. But anyway, check for updates. Go get your update. It generally rolls out across the globe. And so if it's not available to you yet, patience. It's coming, but I know it's already been rolling out to some countries. And go get it. It's a free update. If you don't have it, get it at the link below. Thanks for watching, my friends. I hope this video helped. By the way, there's also some other performance updates, some bug fixes, things like that. A lot of stuff that would go into any normal update, but those were the key features I wanted to talk about. Portrait Bokeh AI, the update to Sky AI with the horizon positioning gradient tool, and of course, the updates to textures. Thanks for watching. I'll be back really soon with more videos about all this stuff. You guys take care of yourselves. Have a good day, and adios.